After the phone call, Lynn and I had infinitely more questions than answers, and we didn't even know where to go from there. The one person we went to threw us one hell of a curveball. Who else could we even ask about this? So, whether it be out of a desire for answers or sheer morbid curiosity, we looked deeper into Colleen's case. I guess our thinking at the time was that maybe something in the case files would explain the picture. But the further we looked, the less answers we found. In fact, I gotta say, Colleen's story freaked us out more than anything. Let's start with the setting. Colleen White was born and raised in the small town of Justice Lake, Wisconsin, and I cannot emphasize enough the miniature size of this town. Back when Colleen lived there, the town's population numbered in the hundreds. It's mostly farmland, with the village square being located in the center of it all. The type of place where everyone knows each other. Or at least, that's how it used to be. Nowadays, Justice Lake is pretty depressing. Only a few dozen people even live there anymore. The entire town is just empty houses and wasted farmland. A ghost town. But you want to know the strangest thing about it? I couldn't find any definitive answer as to why the town was abandoned. From all the reports I could find, there were none describing why so many people would up and leave their hometown like that. Could it be possible the disappearance of one girl could have such a powerful effect on an entire town that everyone in it decides to leave? Well, I digress. Colleen was 16 when she disappeared. In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Colleen was suffering from extreme mental issues. The reports are pretty vague on the details, but they suggest extreme delusions, hysteric episodes, and destructive behavior. She would, quote, suffer from audio-visual hallucinations, as well as arbitrary impressions about herself, whatever that means. From what I can find, though, there's no record of her being diagnosed with a specific mental illness. Maybe that's private, but still, it's odd there's no mention of it in the case file. Was she schizophrenic or something? In any case, the report suggests she would often run away from home, disappearing for hours at a time. As for the why, there's no clear answer, but as for the where, the report says, quote, the forest on her family's property. Terrifying, I know, but it gets better. She would only run away in the middle of the night. The last time she was heard from was when her parents heard the front door shut on the night of her disappearance. Of course, her parents immediately went into the woods to try and find her, which they had done many times before. She was a pretty consistent runaway, but it seems they weren't so lucky on this night in particular. Pretty sad, messed up stuff. But it still doesn't answer the question about the broadcast. We knew there was something we were missing. That, and to be honest, we really wanted to know more about Colleen at this point. But there was nothing more we could find. So our next step was to contact someone who could give us more information. Unfortunately, the detective on the case wouldn't give us much to go off of, and we definitely weren't going to call her parents. And that brings us to today. This morning, we managed to track down the yearbook of the school Colleen went to from a year before her disappearance. Using this, we found who her classmates were at the time. We then found the social media of said classmates and got in contact with some of them. Of course, we didn't tell any of them about the broadcast, making up a fake story about a college paper, and they told us the best person to talk about it would be Miss Raven Morrison. Raven was apparently very close friends with Colleen growing up, so she would be able to provide us with the most information about her. So I got in contact with Raven and fed her the college paper story as well. Believe it or not, she agreed to do a recorded interview call. She said she'd call at 6:30. It is now 6:13. And I ask that you bear with me as I lie to this innocent person. I think this is her. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, is this Raven?
Yeah. Is this Brandon? What is it? I'm sorry.
It's Brandon.
Gotcha. I'm sorry about that.
It's alright. I was wondering if you could provide some context to Colleen's case. I mean, I understand the basics, such as the when and the where, but there's an extreme lack of why from what I can find. No diagnosis for Colleen's behavior. Hell, I don't even know what strange behavior means. There's not a lot of specifics in the reports.
Yeah, I think that was at the request of her family. They wanted to keep it as private as possible. And along those lines, too, I want to try to be as respectful, too.
Right.
But for Colleen's behavior, the reason they couldn't diagnose her is because they didn't really have the time to.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, so she wasn't always mentally unwell. We grew up together, so we had a long-standing history of going to classes and being at each other's houses for dinner and whatnot. And there's no signs of it, from what I can remember in discussion with her family and my family. There was nothing weird. I mean, she was totally normal. She only started acting strangely a few weeks before she disappeared.
So she had no prior signs of mental illness?
Correct. Yeah. Not that any of us were aware of, at least. Colleen told me everything. We were like two peas in a pod. We were so close. And then one day something just clicked, and she started rambling to me about the weirdest things.
Well, like what, if you don't mind me asking?
So truthfully, I don't remember a lot of it. It was weird, and sometimes I just tune out because it would happen so often. But what I do remember is that it did have to do with the woods. She was convinced that there was something in them that she needed to find. As for what, I don't know. She just ranted about incoherent subjects like that for hours, which is why, like I said, I would tune them out sometimes. But we did know that if we couldn't help her in time, she'd do something irrational.
So you have no idea what brought it on?
No, no, I was worried for her, and I increasingly got worried as these rants got longer and longer and more frequent. So I talked to her parents about it, and they didn't know what to do either. It was sad. It still is sad, and my only regret is that we couldn't help her. We didn't know what to do, even from a distance. Even when we tried to approach her, there was no angle we could take. It was hard, and you know how those things creep up on people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, do you have any theories about what it might have been?
Me personally, yeah, I have a few of them. I know the media has a bunch of them. When this was published, I mean, it totally blew up in our tiny little town. But when it first happened, most people didn't really want to talk about it around me since it was all too fresh. But the media believes that schizophrenia is the cause, but nobody can be too sure. It was too vague at the time.
How do you mean by too vague?
Well, so when she was saying these things, they weren't particularly delusional. She discussed these troubles more as they were feelings rather than they were visions, and sometimes she'd teeter on the edge of it where she would sound more delusional than normal. I mean, her diary was full of this stuff.
Wait, you said she had a diary? Where is it?
Oh, her parents have it. If you want, I can ask them to send a photocopy of it.
If that's okay, I don't want to get you in trouble.
No, it'll be fine. They actually offered to give me the thing after she disappeared. I was too scared to read it, and I was still grieving. It would have been too hard, but I mean, I can ask him now. I figured it's probably time we look into it.
Well, thank you. Let me know if they say no.
Yeah, sure, no problem.